Exercise variation largely benefits us by preventing overuse. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. You know, this is again, we get into these topics too where there's a lot of debate as to how many exercises we really need to build a muscle. You know, we have the studies that do show that some variation, doing two or three exercises can absolutely seem to help a small amount with muscle growth. Most bodybuilders have done it that way. And I always tell people, look, combining a couple exercises, especially maybe a compound in an isolation, always a good idea. You know, just like triceps right there, talking about triceps. We got pretty good data showing that benching and doing, a laying extension builds bigger triceps than just doing one or the other. Right? They do seem to work different parts of the tricep. I mean, that's a perfect example. When the studies looked at it, they found preferential growth in different heads of the tricep, comparing pressing, like bench pressing, even a closed grip like that, with an extension, right? And they found the best overall growth when both were done in the same program. I mean, so again, when we're dealing with muscles with different functions, like a tricep that has two major functions, yep, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. And I don't think anyone's going to really disagree with that. But, there's also been other data showing stuff like curls that's not necessarily true. Man, there's been some studies on that showing that one type of curl seems to get everything done, really. In terms of just overall growth, it's just been a lot of debate. And a lot of the differences in some of the studies in upper lower is how much brachialis and radial brachialis and stuff is involved when they do MRIs. So all of that aside, though, here's what we have to think about. What's the number one cause of injuries? Overuse. Okay, when we're rotating and changing stuff, it helps prevent a lot of that. So we could make big debates about the gains. I do still generally believe we need at least two exercises to maximally develop any given muscle, right? Two, if not three. Okay. But what's the other thing that we deal with? Well, we get into these topics of volume. How much volume are you going to do? Right? If we're only doing 5, 6 sets a week for a muscle group, not that big of a deal, right? We're not worried about overuse so much. As much. What we start worrying about is we start exceeding about 10 sets a week. That's a point where we have to say, look, we need to work different angles. Okay, and a lot of stuff, and again, I'm talking about for more advanced lifters sometimes, right? Novices, look, I can give you guys 6 exercises and get you probably about as big as you're going to get. Okay, not a problem. You're probably not going to get overuse. You use good form, good fatigue management. All right, not going to be an issue. But a little more advanced lifters, like right here, you'll see me doing a vertical pull and a horizontal pull and then some curls afterwards. And actually on that same day, I did stuff like some rows for my upper back and everything. But like some incline dumbbell rows. But my two big ones right here, these are the big ones, weighted pull-ups, seal rows. And yes, I do the seal rows with 225. That's 2 plates aside. And yes, I use a cambered bar. Someone brought that up sometimes. They're like, I thought you're hitting the bench. I'm like, no, I'm not hitting the bench. The bar doesn't touch it. I'm running a McDonald camber bar. There's like 6 inches of camber in the middle. So, and then we do some curls. And I always like to do at least 2 different types of curls. I think it's a good idea. But overuse. And this is something that they figured out at Westside. This is how they got away with maxing out every week all the time. It's how they got away with it. They changed exercises. Okay? They changed exercises. And that's how I got away with a number of years ago. I was trying a crazy thing where I trained 7 days a week with maxes every day. So I rotated the maxes all the time. Nothing but variations, right? Different bands, chains, bars. Did a max effort upper, max effort lower every day. And then just followed by tons of hypertrophy work. And it worked. I got crazy strong. I got crazy strong. Totally viable. Very, very viable approach. And we could take that approach in general. So that's the other thing. Your really heavy work, those variations, it will avoid overuse. And they figured that out. Like Louis Simmons figured that out at Westside decades ago. Right? We change the max lift every week. Switch bars, switch bands, switch change, switch ranges of motion. that overuse just goes away. You don't get beat up the same way, right? Because the stress has changed on everything, on the tendons, on the joints. There's something to be said for the same thing for all of our hypertrophy, because then we talk about, well, what do we mean by overuse? Well, too much volume, repeating the exact same movement pattern too much. So how do we get around that? Well, we do variations, change stances, change bars, change movements, especially on some of the smaller stuff. Like let's say we're going to hammer triceps super hard. Man, we need some different movements to keep those elbows safe. All right. A lot of different variations. Powerlifters figured this out a long time ago. They need to really rotate those tricep movements a lot. Okay. And bodybuilders largely know the same. So people are like, well, why do they do 5 different exercises? Because they're doing so much volume. You're doing 15, 16, 20 sets a week for a muscle. You better be doing more than 2 exercises. Okay. Why? Overuse. That is the whole point. We're keeping overuse down. Where it will reduce inflammation. It will reduce injuries. Okay. Rotating movements using good form. Okay. And you can still have progressive overload to some extent, because as long as we're pushing those smaller exercises really hard, you can rotate them around. It's fine. You can rotate them around. There's no issues there. Right? There's no issues at all. So, again, same thing here, like on the deadlifts. I deadlift heavy every week. So then I have weeks where, like that week, I did like 5. Instead of doing a really, really heavy all-out set, come in and do some moderately heavy with chains. Okay? And do multiple sets. I did like 5 work sets with that. All right? That sort of stuff works. Right? It works. Again, rotating the movements. Rotating rep ranges. This is the stuff that we do to avoid injury. This is how we avoid injury. One of the best things we can do, because again, sometimes beating those same movements, particularly some of the deep stretch position movements and stuff, over and over and over, leads to tendonitis, leads to inflammation, leads to injuries. Okay. Overuse. So again, exercise variation. It matters. It helps. Especially for people who want to push a fair amount of training volume. You start wanting to take volumes pretty high when you're a pretty strong person. Variation matters. Matters a lot. So again, a good reason to rotate movements around. Okay, a valuable tool in your toolbox. Right? It's a valuable tool in your toolbox. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.